Hey there, I'm Jason with Florida Solar Design Group, and today we're going to talk about what is a microinverter and what does it do. So I have today an Enphase IQ8 microinverter. This happens to be the IQ8X variant of the microinverter. And what this little guy does is it converts the DC power from a solar panel to AC power that can be used in a home. It actually outputs 240 volts AC power, just the same voltage that your house uses. And that's how you get that conversion from the DC output of a solar panel to usable power in your house. These microinverters mount underneath the panels. You get one microinverter for each panel. The microinverter mounts on the rail, and it has this little mounting bracket. And you can plug in the DC connectors from the solar panels, the positive and negative, and they go here. And then you have an AC trunk cable that plugs into this connector here. That AC cable is putting out 240 volts, and it just daisy chains from panel to panel, or microinverter to microinverter. There's a little light on the side here that indicates the status, operating status of the microinverter. Pretty simple little device. It is completely sealed. It's waterproof. This is designed to last a long time in extremely difficult circumstances. Underneath a solar panel, it gets really hot there, but these things hold up. So the trunk cable itself just has two wires. There's two hots to make 240 volts. Pretty simple. There's no neutral wire required in this IQ series microinverter, and not even a ground wire. The grounding of the system, of the metallic parts of the system, are just done with a ground wire that's run externally in the same conduit back to the home run location where the system gets interconnected. But this trunk cable is manufactured by Enphase. They make field wireable connectors. The end of the trunk cable gets a special field wireable termination cap on it. It's also made by Enphase, and this ends up being a waterproof, completely watertight wiring system on the roof. Enphase originally developed the microinverter back in 2007, releasing the first generation of microinverter in 2008. That was the M175 series. And soon after, in 2009, they made really what I guess was considered the first commercially viable microinverter, the M190. They sold about 400,000 of those units, so a lot of systems out there. And admittedly, the early M190s, they had a pretty high failure rate. These things were swapped out at a pretty high rate, but swapping a microinverter is pretty easy, and they do have a 25-year parts warranty on them. So those early adopters were satisfied with that warranty, and a lot of them upgraded to later series. So then they came out with the M215 and M250 series. Those were a little bit different. They had a neutral and a ground wire, and a little bit more complicated. These IQ series microinverters came out. The IQ6 was first, then 7. Now we're on to the IQ8s, and the reliability has just skyrocketed. These things are rock solid now. Once in a blue moon, we'll have a microinverter or two to swap out on a system, and again, it's a super easy swap, and Enphase is great to work with in terms of warranty. But these things are rock solid, and they've really come a long way generation to generation. So really excited to have this new IQ8. Now, the IQ8 series has a unique ability. It is a multi-mode inverter, meaning that it can actually form a grid by itself. You don't need the grid voltage present for the microinverter to put out power. For practical purposes, that doesn't really mean much. You have to have a system controller along with it. The Enphase system controller is a big box that disconnects you from the grid when the grid fails, and it makes these microinverters put out 240 volts that can be used in your house. Now, in a sunlight-only backup situation like that, where you don't have a battery and the microinverters are the only source of power, you're only going to have power during the day, and it's a very limited amount. We actually don't recommend Enphase's sunlight-only backup system. We really want you to have a battery so that it can buffer the ups and downs in solar production. But the point is, this is actually a grid-forming microinverter that can form its own microgrid and put out 240 volts from the solar panel, even when there's no grid present. And that's very unique. That's not something that is common in the inverter industry. Enphase dominates the microinverter industry. In fact, they dominate the residential inverter sector at this point. Really 90% plus of our business is Enphase microinverters, and that's really the case for everybody in Southwest Florida. If you get 3 quotes, at least 2 of them, probably all 3, are going to have Enphase microinverters as an option. Now, the question becomes, why use a microinverter? Back in the old day, we had this big box on the wall, central or string inverter, that would, all the panels would come into the inverter, and it would be like one string of panels or 2 strings of panels coming in the inverter. The problem with that is each panel would not be able to act independently and achieve its maximum power point at any given solar irradiance. Shading is a big problem with solar. If you shade one panel, you don't want that to affect other panels. Now, solar panels have come a long way with bypass diodes and other ways that they can manipulate the system to not react so badly to a shading event. But microinverters and module level power electronics, by far, they're going to do the best job at producing the most power per panel. And hands down, this is the way, if you want to maximize your power, you use a microinverter. Now, detractors say, well, why would I want to put all these microinverters on the roof and create a situation where you have multiple potential points of failure? Well, the argument is there is no one central point of failure, where when you have a string inverter, if that string inverter goes down, the entire system's down. If you have a microinverter that goes down in, say, a 25 panel system, you're only going to lose 4% of your system. One microinverter is 1/25th or 4% of your system. And swapping this thing out is dead easy. It takes longer to put the ladder up than it does to swap the microinverter out. So, in my opinion, it's better to have this distributed architecture. Some people will say they really don't want to have to get on the roof. Here in Southwest Florida, we don't have a lot of difficult roof pitches and high roofs and things like that, multi-story homes. So swapping these things out is actually pretty easy. And in my opinion, this is the way to go. Now, the other reason that module level power electronics like optimizers and microinverters became popular is because of changes in the National Electrical Code. Now the code requires that solar panels shut down in a certain amount of time, down to a certain voltage. And one way to do that's microinverters. Another way is power optimizers. And now there's a couple other ways to do that. Now that we have a PV hazard control systems, the rules have changed a little bit. But the point is, if you want to shut down panels at the DC level, at a panel by panel level, microinverters are a great way to do that. There's also no high voltage DC on the roof. So this is AC power coming out of this guy, 240 volts AC. That's a lot safer than a, say, 400 volt plus string of DC solar panels that you might have in a solar optimizer system, or a system that has a different rapid shutdown system that's a DC string inverter. So safety is paramount, and these microinverters achieve that. I guess the one downside with microinverters is cost. These are costly. They do add a little bit to the system cost, maybe 5–10% versus a solar optimizer or a DC system that has a different rapid shutdown system. But you get tons of advantages. The monitoring, the per panel monitoring that you get, and Enphase's Enlightened Web Portal is well worth the extra money. But the number one reason to go with microinverters, in my opinion, serviceability. Every dealer in Southwest Florida sells Enphase microinverters. Okay, maybe not every dealer, but I would say 95% of the dealers around here sell this. So if you ever need service on an Enphase system, it's going to be very easy to find someone to do that. And it's not that expensive to swap out a microinverter. And, again, it takes less time to swap this out than it does to put the ladder up. So pretty simple process. And Enphase's warranty is fantastic. And one last thing, Enphase offers 24/7 customer support. You just can't beat that. Nobody else is doing that, and it's just amazing the level of service that you get with Enphase. So that's what a microinverter is and what it does. And we're going to be doing more of these product showcases. So in the comments, if you'd like to see a particular product that you want me to showcase and explain, put it down in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe to get notified of all these videos I'm doing. And thanks for watching. I'm Jason with Florida Solar Design Group.